Evening, everybody. Another splendid day here in the shop. What I got right here is a Smithy Midas 1220 LTD Mill Lathe Drill Combo. I bought this thing from a lady here locally whose husband has fallen ill and he's no longer able to use it. She needed some money. So I got it at a decent deal. I didn't beat her up. I didn't take advantage of her. That's just not what I do. I gave her a fair price, and she certainly didn't give it to me. It was in a little shipping container shop that the man had built. I was able to kind of come in and give it a once over. Pretty fair amount of surface rust throughout the machine. I turned both of the motors on, everything worked, nothing appeared to be horribly wrong with it, but whenever I got it home, I noticed that the whole mill column, the whole mill piece, this whole upper end, did not move. And didn't matter what you did, what you loosened up, it was wedged in there. And then I come to find out by looking that this right here, this is the mill column head was broke off. Actually, I saw this piece, which now has a hole in it. I put some shorts up on how I got this thing out. But this will normally set on top of this column, like so. And this piece will slide over the top. There's some thrust bearings in there. And just through the mechanism of how this works, this top part snapped off. Now, I was able to get with Smithy, and I got a replacement. I think that was about 65 bucks, so 100 bucks by the time it got to me. I had considered at one point boring out the center of this and working something, but this is my first lathe, and honestly, I don't have any experience with a metal lathe. I have a little bit of experience with a wood lathe. I know that those are not the same thing, but I wanted to just kind of go through this and show you how I'm going about replacing this and what I thought the issue was. So I'm going to break away here, and I'm going to show you kind of how this mechanism up here works, and kind of, at least in my unprofessional opinion, what happened there. It's likely to happen again, which is probably why the Chinese manufacturers have moved away from this type of design. So I just wanted to show kind of the physics of why I think that part failed. If you look here, this is the column lift mechanism. The column head would normally set right here on top of the column. It's not on there right now. And then there's a lead screw over here that goes to a bevel gear attached to the front. The problem is to lift this, you're actually pulling down on this whole mechanism. And what that does is it puts a pretty significant torque on that head. And if you look right here, you can probably see the kind of the gap that's formed there. That puts a pretty significant twisting force on that column head. Of course, that column head is made out of cast iron, and cast iron is very good in compression and not all that great in tension or torque or bending moments. And if you look at the way that those are made, there's a little relief cut right about that stress point, and it just basically snapped off. All right, so the first thing I want to do with this process is I want to take this lifting arm off, just because it makes it a little bit easier to line everything up. There is a set screw here in the back, and then you just crank it all the way out using the lift mechanism. So earlier I was talking about the stress. This is the new column head that I got directly from Smithy, and it has a much smaller relief cut right in this area, which is where the last one broke, and I'll grab that one in just a minute and show you. But this simply sets down. It's got 4 M6 bolts, or hex cap head screws, I guess these would be. And you're going to start all those. Anytime you're doing something like this, you always want to start them before you torque them. Start them all, then torque them all down. And I'm just going to kind of go in a crisscross pattern. I don't think it really matters. This part takes very little movement, only when you're moving it up and down. So there's our 4 bolts engaged. Just for comparison, this is the column head that snapped, and you can see there's probably a 2 millimeter relief cut in this, and you could tell that that's just where they were when they machined this. They put a pretty good relief right there. So I think that just created a weak point, and then just over and over and over again, that's what caused this thing to snap off. So there are 2 thrust bearings on this, one for the top and one for the bottom of that lift mechanism. I was able to go on to Amazon and source these. I'll put a link to the parts somewhere on here. You can still get these from Smithy, but it was, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 times the price of ordering them off of Amazon. Part bearing, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of red grease on here for the fun of it. These bearings get actually very little use. It's not like a trailer bearing where it's spinning around for hours and hours and hours, but a little grease. And then we have our lift mechanism. Goes on next. That goes on. After the second part of your thrust bearing. These thrust bearings are pretty tight. So that goes on, fits well. Same thing on top. Same identical thrust bearing goes on there. Thrust bearing goes in, a little bit of grease just to keep it from rusting. Now there is a captive tanged washer that goes on this as well. I don't have one of those, and I'm not going to worry about it. If this was something that was spinning 5,000 RPMs for hours on end, I would worry about it, but I am not terribly worried about this. You do have this castle nut that moves on there, like so. Always a good idea before you torque that back down that you put your lead screw back in. Get it started. Tighten up your castle nut. Now, there are spanner wrenches that you can get for these, but they're a little hard to get in there. So the next best thing that I have found is an old screwdriver out of the bottom of the drawer. Sorry if I'm giving you the shakes. And we're just going to check this, make sure that it still turns. Got a little bit of preload on there. That might be a bit much, so I'm going to back that off just a touch. And that's good. Put our lead screw back in for our lifting mechanism. While I got this all out, I'm going to add just a touch of, just a smear of grease on there as well. Give that a little love, get it kind of work itself down in there. And once you get it back down in there, just tighten down this set screw. And that's all there is to it. Now, there is a cover that goes over all of this. I'll put all that back on and then spin this up. But you can see, pretty easy job. Again, I think the reason for that is the design of this control head, or column head, which is probably why they're not doing this anymore. All right, so that's going to finish up this quick and easy project. You can see them all back together now. I can move the mill head up and down, and it rotates with relative ease. And the reason why I'm not terribly concerned about the quality or torque on these bearings is because honestly, this is about as far as it's going to move. The reason why that rotates that way is so you can raise this up and swing the mill head back, or I guess forward, to get it out of your way of the lathe. Not real useful, but that's what it's for. So I wouldn't get too concerned about these. Again, this one was stuck down into that bore, which made it fairly difficult to get out. And again, you can see here with that relief, and the bending moment that was on that just literally snapped it right off. If this one breaks, I will probably bore that center out and use some kind of, probably a 1-inch bolt that I will turn down. Hopefully at that point I will have acquired some lathe skills and can do all that on my own. So that's going to finish this up. I invite you to like and subscribe. I will be doing a few more projects with this Smithy Midas 1220 LTD. Again, I'm brand new to the metal lathing and metal milling world, so I don't know that they're going to be very helpful if you are already in there. I know that there's a lot of talk about these machines on the interwebs, on various Facebook groups, various YouTube channels, about how they're junk. The mill is not near rigid enough, which is probably true. The lathe probably isn't big enough. But I still think this is probably as good or better than any of the mini metal lathes that you would get. I think they all need a little bit of love and care whenever you get them to be functional. But quite honestly, you're not going to buy a machine like this and expect to turn a 10-inch slug of cast iron down to 10 thousandths clearance and repeatability. I mean, that's just unreasonable. You know, it's like I say, Lamborghini makes a real nice sports car, but they're not worth a dang for hauling around bales of hay. Know your tools, know what it's capable of. If you're looking for sub 10 thousandth clearances or repeatability, this is probably not the machine for you. I think this machine is $3,000 brand new. Smithy is no longer importing this one. Their manufacturer apparently went belly up during the pandemic. Grizzly sells one that's very similar to this. You can go on Alibaba, AliExpress. You can order one that is almost identical to this. Same problem with all of them. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. It doesn't do anything exceptionally well, but it will do it all. I think for my use here on the ranch, this will be just perfect because I'm not turning, you know, like I said, those sub-micron parts. I'm not building space shuttles out here. Not yet, anyway. You know, I'll use this to make a bushing or a bearing or a washer, a spacer, just something to putz around with. And I think this will do just fine for that. Not the best thing out there in the world, but for what it is, I think it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, get inside in the air conditioning, and get this thing edited and uploaded. I appreciate y'all watching. I know I haven't posted very many long form videos in the past couple of months. I've just been real busy. I've been trying my hand at some shorts. Those are kind of duds. So not that I'm, got millions of views on any of these others. But if you do like this kind of content, just a normal guy standing out in his shop talking to you about stuff that he's doing, please give me a like and subscribe. Until then, there you go. Have a good one.